In this week's Signal Emitted, Jetbrains is supporting open source development even more, a quick GMTK Game Jam update, Godot has a new beta, and then there's also our creator spotlight, our game, tip and add-on of the week. Welcome to Signal Emitted, your weekly news video for Godot related news. I'm Voylin, and Godot is getting more funding. In last week's Signal Emitted, I mentioned some of the updates that came to the Rider IDE related to the workflow for Godot projects. Here's some more news about Jetbrains, the creators of the Rider's IDE. From this week, they are a platinum sponsor for the Godot game engine, meaning that they'll be giving the Godot Foundation a minimum of €36,000 a year. Just to clarify, Godot sponsors don't have the power to request features, but they can, however, direct their donations towards specific items in the Godot's priority list or suggest implementations for industry-wide open standards. Now, this is great for the Godot engine and for us, as the higher their budget is of the Godot Foundation, the more full-time developers they can have, and the faster needed features and bug fixes can be worked upon and released in new versions. And also just a quick mention for the people who missed last episode, Jetbrains, they make very good IDEs, and for open source developers, they actually have a free key to all their software. If you work on open source, try to apply and you will basically have access to all their IDEs, all their tools. And if you work on non-commercial projects or you just want to try it out, the Rider IDE right now is free. Well, not right now, it is free forever for non-commercial things. So as long as you're not working on a commercial game, you can basically use the Rider's IDE for free. For this week's episode, there is no sponsor, but if you want to fill this slot for next episode, next week, then there's a link for that in the description below. Sponsors help me to keep making these videos and to work on my video editor Godot, which is also completely made in Godot. But yeah, basically it supports me a lot and it's how I can keep doing this in the long term. And up to the creator spotlight, and this is probably a creator many of you probably already know, DevDuck. For the people who don't know this channel, DevDuck used to be a Unity creator but switched to the Godot game engine in 2020. His channel is all about the development of his game and RPG, Dolphin, and how he works on game development in general whilst having a full-time job. His devlogs have a very relaxing atmosphere with good explanations of the struggles he has to go through and the solution that he comes up with to solve those struggles. He is the type of channel that gives a lot of motivation to people to work on their own personal projects. And I really recommend checking him out if you have not watched any of his videos yet. A link is in the description, so visit him, watch some videos and subscribe to him if you haven't already done so. And then the GMTK Game Jam 2025 is over, and sadly enough, I wasn't able to finish working on something since I somehow managed to injure my arm. It's getting better today, but yeah, still kind of, non-functional. But even though I couldn't join, lots of other Godot developers did. Each edition of the GMTK Game Jam has been seeing more and more games being made with Godot. Last year, that gap between Godot and Unity was only 6%, and this year the gap only became 2%. Godot is more and more seen as a great engine to easily make games with, and has become more and more the go-to engine for game jams. Let's hope this trend continues and that we'll be able to pass the amount of games made with Unity in next year's GMTK Game Jam, which at the current pace, Godot will probably be able to beat. And then the Godot beta releases are rolling out weekly again, and we're at Godot 4.5 beta 5 right now. We're still below the 80% of the 4.5 milestone, so I guess we'll basically be only seeing beta releases for this month, with hopefully next month some kind of a sign of a actual release candidate. Now, I've been doing my part in using the latest builds, the latest beta builds for the projects that I'm working on, and honestly, so far, it has been a very bug-free experience, with the releases even working better than the 4.41 release for me. So yeah, so far it's looking great. And then for some other news, which is probably more interesting than the new beta update, Godotcon Boston 2025 might be over, but for the past 2-3 weeks, the Godot YouTube channel has been posting the talks on their YouTube channel, which happened at that convention. I've been going through some of them and they are quite informative and worth a watch if you have the time, because they can be quite long. Hearing other Godot creators talk about their tools and experiences with Godot is quite valuable in my opinion, and also quite interesting. So give them a watch. There will be a link to the whole playlist in the description below. And for this week's Signal Emitted for Game of the Week, I chose the game Turing Complete. This game helps you to learn about CPU architecture through giving you puzzles. You start off by making very simple circuits, but soon learn to build your very first PC and write your own assembly codes, write your own programs. I personally really like these type of games which teach you valuable skills and knowledge. This is a game that I've been following for some time, but the game is still in early access, which is something to take in mind, but right now you can basically wishlist it and also buy the game already. Now, pre-ordering a game whilst it's still in an early stage, I don't often recommend it, but Turing Complete has been on my radar since it launched. This is a very interesting game that actually teaches you stuff that could actually be valuable. So yeah, there will be a link in the description below to check it out. If you're interested, give it a wishlist, buy it if you'd like, check it out. And then let's add some add-ons to our games. TerraBrush is our add-on of the week, and it's a C# based 3D terrain height map editor for the Godot engine. TerraBrush is currently in its 0.13.1 alpha release and has been mainly developed for the creator's own personal projects. Some of the key features are terrain sculpting, terrain painting, you have a foliage and object scattering tool, environmental effects for adding things like water and snow. Then there are some other features as well, such as LOD support, like level of detail, and chunk optimizations. TerraBrush is being actively developed, and it is a great asset to have and choose if you're working on making a 3D world. The license is MIT, which is the same as Godot, so you won't have any problems using it inside of your commercial projects or using the source code to create your own version of the tool to better fit your needs. Because this project is completely open source. Check out TerraBrush in the link in the description to learn more. And lastly, we have our tip of the week, which for this week is some advice on performance. Did you know that the match statement is actually slower compared to using if, elif, or else statements? A Reddit post in the Godot subreddit discusses that the match statement in GDScript is approximately 50% slower than if, elif, else chains when comparing against strings. Now, this is based on a benchmark that he did of using 500,000 strings to compare against. Now, the poster does acknowledge that this is kind of a flawed benchmark, but this does, however, highlight kind of a performance issue which might appear if a match statement were to be used inside of underscore process, underscore inputs, the functions that run every single frame, like physics process. Because that runs every single frame, those tiny like delays that it takes longer to run a match statement compared to if, elif, else, that can have a big impact if it happens every single frame. Match statements are slower than if, elif, else statements, so they shouldn't be used in code that runs every single frame. However, using match can make your code more cleaner and easier to read, so it's still advised to use it in other places of your code instead of a whole chain of if, elif, else statements. Another comment posted on this post that he tried to test the theory with enums, thinking that performance will be better, but in reality, using enums was even slower compared to using strings. So there is some debate about whether these kind of small performance improvements are actually useful for typical game development. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this. Do you think using match statements in process, input, physics process is bad or not? Let me know. But anyway, this is the end of the episode. Thank you very much to all my Ko-fi supporters for supporting this whole video series, the video editor that I make, and all the other projects that I work on. And yeah, subscribe for more videos because this is a weekly show, and hopefully my arm will be good enough that I can finally upload other videos as well during the week. Let's see. Subscribe for more, and I'll see you all in the next episode. Bye bye.